Previously on agentpalmer.com, it's easy to like I Like Me and miss John Candy. An Austen adaptation to Desire, a very special report from Mrs. Agent Palmer. And have you checked out BP Kelso's newest published work yet? This is the Palmer Files, episode 161 with Adam Ortiz. He's Deputy Secretary for the Maryland Department of the Environment, and we touch on public service, but he's here to discuss dreams and not giving up on them, baseball, music, fulfillment, wonder, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! And welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 161st episode is Adam Ortiz. On this show, I've hosted friends, family, strangers I met on the internet, and many times, especially when they are strangers, I know very little about them. In this case, things were different. I, quote, met, unquote, Adam by editing an episode of the Good Government show he was guesting on titled Keeping Our Country Clean about his work at the EPA and in public service. Adam is currently serving as Deputy Secretary of the Maryland Department of the Environment. It was from that episode that I decided to reach out and invite him to come on this show, and he did. You'll hear us talk about why I invited him on the show and just how much we have in common, baseball, music, and more. Plus, you'll hear us discuss Mid-Atlantic sports towns, public service, fulfillment, wonder, and you'll even hear us trade album recommendations. But first, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterward, you can find all related ways to contact myself in the show notes. I can pass along any messages to Adam you may have. Also in the show notes is a link to Season 5, Episode 3 of The Good Government Show featuring Adam Ortiz titled Keeping Our Country Clean. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's play ball! Adam, I'm going to start with another podcast you did that I edit called The Good Government Show, where I know you are currently in public service, but you had said that when you were growing up, you wanted to be either a baseball player or a rock star. And immediately I went, this guy speaking my language. Those were two things I wanted to be. Are those still, do you still want to, swing the bat and play the guitar?
Of course I do, man. I have not given up on my dreams. Actually, today is my 51st birthday.
Wow. Happy birthday.
You and the listeners. But no, I still of course it's ridiculous. Rock star is slightly less ridiculous than baseball player, but yeah. It's funny you say that because, after the winter, which felt like a very long winter, I was like, man, I got to get in shape again. And, I did a trial at a gym and I was like, I hate gyms. They're so boring and the machines and the, yada, yada. And then I realized on my commute to and from my new job in Baltimore, there's a bunch of batting cages right off the highway.
Okay.
So I got a membership to the batting cage, which is a way more fun way to exercise. And
yeah,
I'm now at the 75 mile an hour pitching machine, which I'm really proud of.
Before this, when was the last time you swung a bat?
Oh man. There's like pickup softball games here and there, but not really like working at it in air quotes, people can't see air quotes.
Yeah.
The podcast, but air quotes, probably 20 years, man, 25 years.
This is funny to me because I, for a little while, and I still have the bat, but for a little while I was just swinging. I don't have batting cages very local, but I was swinging a bat just for the heck of it. And for me, that's a workout. And the reason I say that is because this was a bat that we found in my grandfather's closet when we were cleaning out the house.
Awesome.
That was a giveaway at Memorial Stadium from Toyota for the Baltimore Orioles, but it was a full-size bat. And it wasn't just a full-size bat. It's a full-size bat for like I don't know, Boog Powell. Like, this is not a bat that I should be, like I'm 5'10" and a half. If I'm, maybe, 5'11", I'm a buck 50. This is a bat that weighs as much as me, basically. So like just standing in the backyard and swinging it for the heck of it was a work. Like, it's not, there's no one there's no one in the world that's like, that's the bat you should be swinging.
Good for you, man.
So
Good for you.
I would swing that, and I probably should get that out again because I do feel like I need to get back in shape in some way. And that was a fun way to do it, just to kind of engage my arms from a desk job guy that occasionally goes for a run and completely ignores every other muscle group that doesn't use running.
I know. Preach, brother. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. But well, I'm happy to share my batting cage time with you anytime you're in the Baltimore area, man. And if, and same, back at you, man. So have you given up on your rock star and baseball player dream?
The baseball player stuff, a little bit, I think. I still have my glove. And I still think that, like, I think I know, like, I think I'm one of those, like, I could have been, I feel like I'm probably a later career Cal Ripken. Like, I know a lot, but I can't quite do a lot. So I have to let my knowledge make up for the difference in
mentor the younger players.
Yeah. The rock star thing, I still play quite a bit, and I'd like to get into writing at some point. I don't know that performing's ever a thing that I'll get back into. That was a thing I did a long time ago, but yeah, baseball probably, I don't know, if my kid gets involved in it, I'll probably coach. I don't see, I say that, and then in the back of my head, I'm like, but as a fan, like, I'm a yeller. So if I'm going to be a coach, I would probably have to let my wife do the coaching and just be like whisper the knowledge to her. 'Cause I don't, holding my tongue, like Earl Weaver was before my time, but I've seen the clips. I know the legend, and I feel like that's who I would probably be if I was going to be a manager.
So are you a yeller with passion and love, or a yeller with vitriol, or a combination thereof?
It's a combination that I'm trying to get better. Just because, like, it doesn't matter the sport. Like, I will exclaim in horror or in glee regardless. I think that's just kind of, and I think we talked about it at one point, and I think we glossed over it, so it could be its whole episode, but I turned my wife into a sports person. She was not a sports person at all, and now she follows every pitch of the Orioles, and she'll sit down and watch some college football and some pro football with me, and even pay attention to some of the racing I enjoy and March Madness. Like, I've kind of corrupted her the whole way, but now it's almost like what I expect if interested, the kid will go through, which is like, you live and die with every pitch. And I was like, honey, it's April. Don't worry. I know it. Yeah, it still stings, but it's April. It's May. Like, it's early. Not that big of a deal, but I still, yeah, it doesn't matter in person, on the TV. I'm just yelling. Are you?
I'm a medium yeller.
Okay.
I'm definitely passionate. I get too involved. So I've actually taken a break from sports because I'm like, oh my God, I'm having this emotional turmoil over this group of guys that don't even live in the city, I'm like, why am I so attached to these guys, and so I took a little bit of a break, but I love sport. I love, and in particular, I think baseball is a special kind of sport, and I'm glad it's surviving. When in the 80s and 90s, there was questions about was baseball going to survive with these flashier, faster sports, but I'm glad it's doing well, and sort of the pace of it, with your advice to your wife that, hey, it's just one game. There's 161 more. There's something kind of beautiful about that. It's a long arc. The teams have to perform well. It's not like, oh, we got lucky 3 games in a row, so now we're we made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like it's it's sort of a grind, but there's something really, really nice and sweet about that. So yeah, I'm trying to, and as I said, I've entered, I guess my fifth, sixth, 50s, the decade of the 50s. So, being a little more active and a little more engaged is more of a priority. Can't quite coast. My suits are shrinking, and I'm committed to not getting
New suits,
new clothes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But it's it's a nice way to re-engage. It's a nice way to hang out with people. Especially if the stakes are low. Pick up games, wiffle games. But it's funny going to the batting cage more. We have a little family reunion with my immediate family every year, and my brother has a small city's worth of children, and he's teaching them all to play ball, and they're really into it. So we have these pretty intense wiffle ball games, and I have to say, like, I am performing well.
Okay.
Among the 8, 9, 12-year-olds, and turning some heads.
That's good. I mean,
my
look,
batting has never been better, actually.
I mean, are you a 5-tool player? Or are we talking 3? Like, you can hit, you can field, you can pitch, but you're not going to be a phenom on the base paths anytime soon.
Well, wiffle ball, thankfully, is low barrier for all those categories. Yeah. But it's it's cool. I'll tell you this, man. Let's regroup in a few months.
Okay.
And let's talk about whether we're going to walk onto spring training. 2026.
Yeah.
Pick
Okay.
your team. It'll be a great story if nothing else.
Of course. Yeah. I think it would be one of those things where I do worry, though, right? So there's something I learned in college in as far as baseball, or I guess just that kind of a sport, which is I was right-handed growing up. And I learned to bat lefty. I learned to switch hit at some point, but I was a righty. So, like, even though I learned on my own time, no actual Little League coach would ever put me in. And I've worn glasses since I was in the 3rd grade. And there's a part of me that in college, when we would play wiffle ball and I would bat from the left-hand side, I used to hit better.
Wow.
And I just imagine it must be that even though I'm right-handed for everything, my right eye or left, whatever eye is more important for batting, is just better if I'm up there as a lefty, because I was just like, yeah, like, why not? I know I can kind of do it, and then, like, I just lit the college wiffle ball on fire by just switch hitting. Like, it was just kind of. So I don't know, maybe, but I mean, I follow the Orioles, and Cedric Mullins went from being a switch hitter, which I thought was like the pinnacle of everything, and he's like, well, I'm just going to be a lefty from here on out, and that was okay. And I was like, well, I don't understand. Don't you want to be a switch hitter? Like,
well, the switch hitting thing, I never got my head around it, and I'm not, but I'm left-handed. I play sports right-handed. I'm a left-handed guitar player.
Okay.
But so in baseball, there's all these switch. Okay, I get back, righty, lefty, But nowhere else in life is like, oh, today I'm going to write with my left hand. Tomorrow I'm going to write with my right hand.
Yeah.
Or like nobody's like, oh, well, that's my left-handed guitar, but I think I'm going to play my right hand. Like, nobody does that. It's only in baseball, which is kind of a weird and sort of, it's a little freakish, people who do it and do it well, but it's, fairly normalized, but in no other facet of our lives.
No, so you're a left-handed guitar player. So I have to ask, does that make it harder or easier to learn to play? Because, like, I guess when, like, if we sat down together with some guitars, you could mirror me. I mean, although I don't know, like, is that easier when you're watching people and trying to learn?
Well, I'm so used to it now because it's been like centuries that I've been playing guitar. So I'm used to it, but other people aren't always used to it. And they're like, whoa, this is weird, man. It's like we're in a mirror, I'm like, yeah, but you're playing a different chord than I am. So it's not really a mirror.
Yeah.
But no, I've gotten very used to it. But yeah, it's made other things harder, like finding a guitar, like, oh, I really want a such and such. Like, I can't just go to the store and get a such and such.
That's
like,
true.
You gotta hunt and hunt and hunt. which is kind of fun.
So do you have a collection? I mean, look, I feel like if I was a left-handed guitar player, I would probably have more guitars. I have enough already, but like, I feel like it would be like, yeah, but when am I going to see this again? Do you just think like, this might not come along again. I have to pick it up.
That is exactly what happens.
Okay.
Like, exactly. And I'm glad you expressed that, because when I try to express it, it seems very self-serving. Like, no, there's really a logical reason why I have 700 guitars in the basement, but no, it is like, oh, well, I'll probably never see this thing again if it's like, something kind of interesting or older. But yeah, it's been a lot easier finding left-handed amplifiers though.
That's true.
You can find them anywhere.
That's true. Yeah.
Left-handed strings too,
So what are you playing? Because I will admit, I grew up playing rock, and then I moved to bass for a long time. I still more consider myself a bass player.
Okay.
And then during the pandemic, or right before the pandemic and then into the pandemic, I got really into acoustic and I learned a lot of folk. And now I'm trying to get back into bass, because like it's one of those things. I spent like so many years playing just bass and then occasionally picking up a guitar, and then I went like full on acoustic and didn't touch anything other than my acoustic for like whatever, and now I'm trying to become, I guess, what you would call more of a well-rounded player.
Well, I probably like you and a lot of other folks in our age range, grew up on classic rock and records, and I grew up in like the 80s and grunge, and so loud, crunchy stuff, is sort of home base. But I play a lot of acoustic too, and I still gig pretty regularly, and it's probably 50-50 doing acoustic sets or doing electric with a band. But I have an acoustic guitar in pretty much every room of this house.
You and I are the same there. I also have an acoustic in almost every room in the house. It's important that you can pick it up whenever you feel like it. That keeps you in shape. Yeah,
and I also found it's a way to, I don't know if you relate to this, manage television guilt. So sitting on the couch and like, oh, I just let the 7th episode of some zombie show play. But if I have a guitar in my hand and I'm playing along with a theme song or figuring something, practicing, then it's more guilt-free. I'm actually practicing and rehearsing and improving my skills, not being a worthless couch potato.
No, I agree. That's 100%. I mean, I don't do it enough, but I definitely think that that's definitely something that, I guess been positive. I don't think you can be guilty of. Yes, of course, that's something I do. Picking it up and noodling around, and I mean, as of recording, we have a 3-month-old, and I'm trying to play around him so he's used to the sound, the noise. I don't want a loud strum to scare him, right? I just feel like, get used to it, kid. Like, Dad likes music. That's just the way it is.
Awesome. Yeah, and I didn't say congratulations on your growing family.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's one of those things where, because I have so many different things, and we've only touched on 2, right? Like, we touched on sports and music. Like, there are so many other things. I'm just like, you know what? You're probably not safe. He's going to pick something. I don't think there's anything out there I don't like. I don't like Renaissance Man, because I feel like that's just like, I don't know, too much. But like, there are a lot of things. I have a lot of hats, and so we'll see how it goes. I obviously, I want to teach the kid music in some capacity, right? Like, that would be,
well, just being exposed will be awesome for the kid, that it's an option. It's something that's accessible. Whenever it feels right. Well, I have a lot of interest too, and I would say Renaissance Man, except that implies that you're really good at those things.
Okay.
I'm not that great. I'm okay.
Is there a mid-tier Renaissance Man that we can sign up for and get jacket? Like, that would be great. That'd be wonderful. Yeah. No, I there was something about just, I don't know, music hit me at the right time. Just kind of like the same time actually, ironically, I stepped away from Little League at the same time I kind of picked up a guitar. So like there is a similarity there, but I also think that was probably the limit of my skills. It was time to move on to something new anyway.
Yeah, right. Great point.
And now I'm a writer of some kind, a little bit, an editor and like a creative type, but the sports thing never goes away. I feel like it's in there. I can tell you, I stepped away from baseball, which has always been my first love, for about 5 years. Not on purpose, just kind of happened. And then so at some point, I think junior or senior year in college, I started picking back up again. I bought the MLB TV subscription when it was finally available in the early days of it. And so I watched a lot of Orioles games when I could. And and since then I've had that subscription ever since. Like I've just stayed in touch. But it's one of those things that it was only 5 years that I was like not in touch with it at all. And then you come back to it and you go, why did I ever let this go? Like I still enjoy this.
Yeah, but I don't know if you relate to this, but my relationship to sports is certainly different now than when I was a kid. When you're a kid, it's like, this is our team where I'm growing up, and these giants are, heroes, doing this incredible stuff. And, being our age, and I'm older than you see so many iterations of your team that barely resemble it. And it's not like the 40s or 50s where all the Yankees lived in Brooklyn or something, or Bronx, it was, it's everybody's sort of imported and exported, and there's a lot less loyalty, and the money is so big, and it takes, I don't want to be too harsh, but it takes a little bit of course the childhood shine off of the sport.
100%. There's I don't know what it's called, but there's this weird little quiz thing, and I never signed up for it, but occasionally I'll still play it, which is like there's a daily quiz about each team, and you have to put players in the right columns and stuff. And it's one of those, to your point, I can still basically name most of the roster from like 88 through 98. Right. And part of that's because while the roster does change completely from 88 to 98, it changes like one or two players a year, and the core is still basically there. And now,
yep,
I go into every spring training, and the joke in my family is that it's basically the beginning of Major League, the movie, every time. It's like, who are these guys? Because you just don't, maybe there's 3 left, whereas it used to be there's only 3 new faces.
Yeah. Well, Jerry Seinfeld talked about this phenomena decades ago. It's like you're just rooting for a jersey.
Yes.
Like the team is a concept, a sort of a mental fabrication, to a sense. I mean, some teams have a real sense of team, that when you see it or feel it, but often it's just like, oh, I really like blue and orange. We call that the Mets.
Yes. That's, yeah. I gotta tell you, there is, just something, I don't know if you've found this, but in my professional life, sports was the great equalizer. I'm not the greatest schmoozer. I'm not. And I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. But if I need to work a room, most of the time I can get by on my sports knowledge. Like I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan and a Philadelphia, New York Mets, New York Yankees, sometimes Pittsburgh area, right? So like as long as I pay attention to the league,
yes.
And I'm not a big NFL guy, but if I can pay attention to whatever's happening with the, Eagles and Giants, like I can get by in a professional setting, just turning the conversation gently to sports. And then
yep,
I'm good to go. And I found it to be, I don't know, it may be an icebreaker, like probably the ultimate icebreaker, in a way that I don't know that a lot of people utilize, because I didn't see a lot of other people out there talking sports, but it's like, but everybody's got something they like.
Yeah. Well, kind of where you and I grew up in New York, and I live in Maryland now. And and you're in Bethlehem and, have strong connection. There's like this sort of mid-Atlantic, big old city sports franchises that are dominant.
Yes.
But if you go to Oklahoma or, other parts of the country, they're talking a whole nother language about, college sports and high school teams and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I cannot even keep track of the half of a team that I'm following nowadays. So I think something sort of special about this part of the country in particular, just these old cities, these old, working class underdog cities, Baltimore or Brooklyn, or Philly and Pittsburgh, with these, storied histories and these iconic players that I think is like a unique and special thing. Other sports and, other cities and stuff have their own versions of that, I'm sure. But I think there's, something very storied about, Earl Weaver and Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray and Mickey Mantle and DiMaggio and Brooks Rock. Just there's like this like kind of cool, like, I don't know, sort of permanence, like the founding fathers of baseball.
Yeah, you kind of know of, like, I don't know, you just learn about it as you grow up. Like, I know probably just as much Phillies, Yankees, and Mets history as I do Orioles history, and I don't follow them. And yet,
right,
I have that knowledge somehow.
Culture. Yeah, it's like there's like a cultural connection among them, I think.
Yeah.
To your point.
So, you are in public service. What did you go to school for? If you wanted to be a baseball player and a rock star, what kind of took you off that track?
Well, I went to a little school in Maryland called Goucher College. Great little school, and I went as a music major.
Okay, and so rock star was still very much the future, hopefully.
Yeah, there was something in there, and it was, college was cool because I was exposed to all this stuff I wouldn't have. I was a pretty curious kid, but really listening and learning about other stuff. So I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a composer. Maybe I want to do something like some big iconic thing, And then so I do well in my music classes, not so much the other classes. And then second semester, I meet with my advisor, and I still think about rock star. I'm still thinking about like the theme of Star Wars, like big things, or like Beethoven's Ninth or show, big things. And then I'm like, yeah, well, I really love music, and I'm trying to think of my future, and what kind of careers are available, And he was like, well, commercial jingles, maybe even before a movie, about popcorn or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a message about my skill as a aspiring composer or something, but I was like, I think I need a plan B. And I was very passionate about human rights and social justice. And I was a Boy Scout, so I have this sense of responsibility, to leave things better than you found them. So that was a big part of me too. And I was like, oh, well, maybe political science and government is a way to go. So that's what I pivoted to, and that's what I studied, and I loved it. I still consider myself a student of those disciplines as well as a practitioner in public service. But yeah, it was a good mix of like, college-y, liberal artsy stuff, but also with application, but like real world impact. So that was appealing to me.
That I'm still you now go into the column of people I'm jealous of, because like I went to a small liberal arts college that was my junior year. My sophomore year, they announced they were going to go 4 years. So I went with a liberal arts AA, and then I was in the second class of baccalaureate graduates. And so I had to decide like if I was going to leave or if I was going to stay. I decided to stay. And then I was like, well, what are you going to get your degree in? I was like, communications. That's fine. Like, so,
right.
From that point on, actually, I guess you can go before that, liberal arts into communications. I've never understood what I wanted to do. I've never really put that together, and I ended up in the nonprofit sector, helping people and helping organizations, and that's kind of been, I guess, I don't want to get too like corporate right now, but like it's one of the things that makes me feel unhireable is like I've been in jobs in corporate settings where they're like what are your skill set? And I'm like, I'm really good with nothing. Cause that's kind of like the nonprofit mentality of like, here's $10, go change the world. Like, okay, let me see what I can do. And they've always been like, well, what would you do with a budget? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. I've never had enough money. And when I tell you I've never had enough money, you're thinking I'm doing it with nothing, right? Like you're coming in and like, oh, here's $10,000 for a project. I'm like, I've only ever had like 1,000. Like, I don't know what to do with that. And so, I like honesty because I prefer it that way, but I just feel like there's a part of me that now I'm like, I'll just kind of try and stay behind the scenes and just help people. There's not a lot of money in it, but I get to do something that I like. And I get to keep my own sanity so that my friends who are in these corporate settings and need help, like just personally, like, hey, maybe it's too much, like chill out, relax, like come back. Like you're losing yourself. So that's my like secondary job, but it's basically a full-time job. I've got like 6 friends that I'm like keeping tabs on, and just making sure like in the parlance of this episode, I'm making sure they don't lose the guitar. Like, hey man, have you picked up your guitar recently? Or, hey, have you done any writing recently? And so I don't know, like there's no money in it, but it's definitely fulfilling to be like, oh, I got one of my friends to actually do something for himself. That's amazing.
That is amazing, man. Well, I think,
but the jealousy comes in that you made a decision and it was a good enough decision that you stuck with it versus me that was like, I'm just going to take the most broadest thing because I can't make a decision.
Well, man, we're all doing the best we can and all figuring it out. And, some days are better than others and some years are better than others, but you strike a theme that I think is an important one. And, lately, there's a lot of talk about the uber wealthy and the richest people. And there's always been that as long as we've been alive. But I'm like, wow, the rich people are really rich and people are really talking about the really rich a lot. But people don't talk about the really fulfilled.
Yeah.
Who are the really fulfilled people? Who are the people that are doing things that have meaning, that matter, that have a ripple effect of, value in people's lives. And, for me, what I realized is that I will never be a rich person, or at least I put the chances close to zero, but I feel that I've been helping people. I've been helping things, and it hasn't always been perfect. And, but I feel at the end of the day, like, I think, like the Boy Scout, I left this place a little bit better than it was yesterday. And, like you working with your friends, that's, fulfilling, you're being there for them. And, and what's the good stuff in life? Is it another house or another car? Or, after a while, it's like, hey, did I enjoy my day? Am I happy? Am I feeling connected? Did I make the world a little kinder, a little more loving, a little more beautiful, a little happier? Like, that's the real stuff, man. I really believe that.
Well, it's funny because you talk about the fact that people talk about the uber wealthy, and they do. And they almost never talk about the fulfilled, but we never talk about if the uber wealthy are happy. Like, which is I feel like that's a discussion for, it's probably not a discussion. It's an open and shut case. On a whole, and I don't mind making this generalization, wealthy people and uber wealthy people are not happy because for some reason we're okay with AA and the concept of addiction for drugs and for alcohol and for gambling. But the uber wealthy have an addiction to more stuff. And money may not take up as much space as, like, say, oh, I collect every magazine ever. It is still an unhealthy, like, drive for more. And so I know, because I've had this conversation with friends that are like, well, aren't you worried about, like, you know, money or what? I'm like, I can pay my bills. Like, I don't know what more there is that I'm supposed to worry about. Am I in the same line of, like, leaving it, like what you're talking about, leaving it better? I just want to improve myself in some way or improve the lives of the people around me. Right. And that most of the time that's not going to come with a monetary value. It's going to come with time. It's going to come with attention. And I can honestly say that was the way I felt before I became a father. Like, I was trying to be there for my friends in a way that they weren't going to be for themselves. And holy moly, like, it does still feel like that perspective is just like any other social media perspective. It feels like shouting into the void because I'm helping a handful of people who are all cheating on me. You know, they're all like, well, I worked a little bit on Saturday. I was like, but Saturday's yours. That's not company time, you know, like, so I'm just trying to help out as much as possible. And we'll see where that leads, right? Maybe, you know, these 6 people are happier and that's better for everyone. I don't know. It's a really weird thing. I feel like, though, on a whole, you and I having those many hats, we don't have to be good at all the things, but having the many hats maybe helps us, right? Like, because we can walk around the house and go, like, there's a baseball jersey, I haven't watched a game in a while, or there's a guitar, I haven't picked it up in a while. And it can be, I haven't done it this week. And for us, that's enough because there's triggers all over to remind us of, like, what else there could be.
Right. Well, I tend to see all of us, you know, we're all mixed and have these connections, you know, maybe, you know, 1 million people, maybe, you know, 30 people, but, you know, are you contributing positive inputs into the system, into the human system, you know, and you never know where that leads. Like, you inspire somebody to have a better day, to feel good about something, to try something they didn't before. That could be life-changing, you know, in one way or another. You know, the time that you take to talk about thoughtful, real things with people in an authentic way in a podcast is an incredible act of generosity. Like, you are sharing, and, you know, right now our conversation, hopefully, is, you know, making people think about stuff, whether they agree or disagree, but maybe there's a nugget or something that they take from it that, you know, makes them a better parent or a better employee, or makes them take a chance on something, you know. And I do think that stuff matters, you know, in all of our lives. You know, we can think about inflection moments from a teacher or a relative or a coach, or, you know, even just, you know, a documentary, and like, wow, I'm really inspired by it. But somebody took the time to tell the story about that person in that documentary or that event. You know, and that is, you know, that's a positive input into our human system. So I think, you know, it's scale is, you know, less important than the balance of it. Is it a positive? Because, you know, I'm not going to trash the uber rich necessarily. Maybe some of them are happy. Maybe all of them are happy. I tend to think that, you know, that is probably not the case, you know, by and large. But, you know, the measure, you know, and it's easy to be jealous of people with things or comfort that maybe we don't have. But, you know, isn't the real value, you know, did they uplift, you know, people in some way in their network, in whatever way that is? Were they positive inputs into our human system, or did they make things harder for people, you know, or, you know, indifferent and detached? I don't know. But, you know, I'd rather somebody's going to be like, you know, Jason, that Agent Palmer guy, you know, he made me laugh today. That's cool. You should check that out. Like, that's a huge win, man.
And I think the other thing is, and this is, I've gotten, there's a lot of armchair XYZ. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always people that will tell you change things, do things differently. This show was always intended to be long form conversation because I don't know you and you don't know me, but we can have a connection. We can tell stories. We can share stories. And in this moment, even if it's just you and me having an impact on each other, that's enough. And then we're both, obviously, because you're here, willing to share that with other people, and hopefully that goes somewhere. But you don't know what the nugget's going to be. I don't want it to be an interview. I don't want it to be, here's 10 questions. Let's go. Let's find out. Like there's something that, I mean, I've always been a talker, and I guess.
Well, I'm shocked to hear that.
Right. So, but I also enjoy listening. And I think that you have to put yourself out there first. I have to tell you a story. Like one of the, like, it's not a secret, but like one of the things that makes this show work is that if I get a short answer from whatever my first question happens to be, usually I end up telling a story. And most of the time that's enough to open up the guest. Most of the time they go, he shared a story. I can share a story. Even if that's not what their expectation was going in, if I didn't set it properly, whatever. And I like that because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't need to know the end. It's not important. It's just, and I don't need there to be an end. This could be open-ended. We can end on a question. I don't know, but that's fine. The world is not open and shut. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that I like spend more time away from my phone and the internet at large, is because like I don't need everything clean. I don't need everything wrapped up in 22 and a half minutes. That's not life. And we'll see what happens.
I know. Remember when we used to wonder things like, oh, I wonder whatever. Like we don't wonder about things much anymore. Like, what is that? Oh, okay. John Lennon was born in blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. You look it up. Yeah. It's a constant source of anguish for one of my friends who comes over quite a bit, because I'm trying to make a house rule no phones, because he will look stuff up like immediately, and he's like, I have to, I just want to know. And I'm like, yeah, but we've been friends for like basically our entire lives. Do you remember when we had to go to the library or dial up internet and wait for an answer? Like even dial up internet wasn't instant, right? Like we had to wait. We had to really want the answer. And then you had to find it, which was not as simple as just a Google search. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing. I guess that's the other thing. Like it's okay. You can wonder, you can think, you can be wrong. Like it's okay. Right. Like I think he was born in 52, but I don't remember. Like most of the time, and I mean this as a guy who puts stuff on the internet for a living, basically, most of the time, the exact dates and details are not important to whatever the conveyance is supposed to be. I'm telling you a story about how John Lennon related to me. How old he was when he died or when he was born is kind of irrelevant.
Right. Well, it's a blessing to, learn, and it's all in the palm of your hand. Like there's a lot in the palms of our hand, but isn't most of the growth when you like engage in a conversation, the critical thinking, you go on a journey, you sort of challenge people, in a thoughtful way, perhaps, or present new information in a way. Thing with the, often with the internet, where you're going. Like I want to land on that fact and resolve that fact. And there's a lot of discussion nowadays that we're losing that ability to connect and talk to people. And I know there's truth to that for sure. But I also remember growing up, with Atari, and people were saying, oh, all the kids, their brains are going to be fried in the back of their heads because they're not, so, and when, novels in the late 1800s, when people were mass producing novels, teenagers and stuff would just curl up with these like pulp novels all the time. And back then parents were like, these things are destroying our children. They're not engaging anymore. Like really look it up. If you're on the internet, you have permission from Jason and I, you can look up that's true. But I think there is like, it's so powerful now, and the dopamine piece is stronger than with Atari.
Oh God, yeah.
So I think there's something to it, but the journey, and I think your larger point was the journey. Let's go on a journey, and see what we see along the way. I mean, that's the interesting stuff. And similarly, I used to travel a lot in my last job, and in my free time, I just walk in the city. I'd be in a new city. I'm just going to go walk in the city, and I could go to the museum or whatever the tourist thing is, but you see so many incredible nooks and crannies and nuggets about the way that the park is designed, or the architecture here, or the way the river comes through, or the character of this neighborhood, or this used to be the Italian neighborhood, or this is where the great tacos are. Like, that's really valuable to me. That's really a rich experience, rather than knowing where I'm going to end up. Like, I am going to go see the Picasso, and like, okay, well, I already know in my head what the Picasso looks like in the museum. But, when you wander, that's rich, that's challenging, that provides growth.
Yeah. It also reminds me of like, how it just in our lifetimes, the internet has changed. Cause I think back to like early internet, we didn't know the destination. Like, I think there was in our lifetime, there's a wonder to the internet that's been lost because, to your point, we know where we want to end up now. Whereas the early internet, you would just type something in to see what happens, and you would click on a few links and I have no idea where. You'd end up from one site to the next, and you didn't know. Like, I remember even, and this isn't on the internet, I remember being lost in Encarta for like an hour or two, right? That's just a CD encyclopedia, and you just clicked through for a while, and you didn't know where you were going to end up. And there is a sense of, I mean, maybe that's the key. Maybe it's just don't have the destination, because it will then allow you to go wherever you're going to go, as opposed to like, well, I really want to see that Picasso. It's like, well, I mean, you can.
That's cool. The Picasso is cool. But I think, it's the old adage, all things in moderation, and, take time to start a new journey, take time to connect with somebody in an interpersonal way, somebody you don't know very well, or, try something, that interpersonal piece of being in the world and being with other people, like, that's as important as ever, if this other stuff is supposed to mean anything. I really believe that. And, to go back to the fulfillment, like, who is the most fulfilled? Is that the value we have? That's where you get it. You might learn stuff, the internet is cool. You can, we've all learned all sorts of great stuff and discovered things, and it's accelerated this and that. But that's not an end in itself.
No. And I maybe it's also that left brain, right thing. We are musicians. We're not great musicians, but we're musicians, right? Like, so I feel like we think about those things. Like, I hear the melody and the lyrics, right? And I also know lyric people or just melody people. I know people that can't name a song until the chorus. And I know people that, and sometimes I fall into the category of the latter, which is, oh no, like 2 notes in and I can name that song, right? Like, I don't need much more than that. Some people just want to listen to a song. They're not looking for meaning either. The fulfillment can come in both of those things can be fulfilling. Oh, I like this, or, oh, this means something to me. Both of those things can be equally fulfilling to different people.
Right. That's right.
So I have to ask about music one more time, which is like what's an album? Adam, what's an album that I should listen to at your suggestion, considering we've known, we overlap in a lot of things. So what's an album Adam wants me to listen to?
Wow. Well, I don't know you very well. Let me think for a second. There's so many ways to go.
If it helps, I can give you 3. Like, if it helps to not have to just choose one,
All right. So I'll just say 3 things that have been in my orbit lately.
Okay.
One is After the Gold Rush, Neil Young.
Okay.
'69, I think. Like Neil Young has had, a lot of different phases in his career. His early phase, is really strong, and he kind of encapsulates sort of the into the '60s, and he's always very down to earth. And I think that album is just a magic album.
Okay.
So that one, I'm doing a deep dive this week into classical music.
Okay.
And I love to rock. I can rock all day and all night long. But Chopin's Nocturnes, really powerful, or the Second Sonata. Often, if you're talking about albums, they're not long enough to fill an album. So often there's sonata on one side and the nocturnes on the other. Like really powerful, really deep, like heavy. And even his major key stuff is sad as hell. Like there's like some magic.
Well, just that statement is quite impressive. So yeah, that's.
And then the third one, and a buddy of mine, we're thinking about performing it, is Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska album. It's there's a story behind it, and I don't quite remember the story, so I might Google it after our podcast. But it's a really stripped. It's pretty much him and the acoustic, and I think there's like one cover on it that he does, but it just strikes this incredible mood. It's not showy. It's not. It's a beautiful, subtle album that often gets overlooked. So those are the three I have for you today, and I would ask the same favor in return, my friend.
Let's see. I have been doing some deep dives of my own. I'm on my what I like to call my second musical journey. The first one was last year. I listened to one album a day, all the way through, no skips. Nice. Just sit down and listen to an album, and it was chronological from the order of release for like 20 bands. And the first journey was like, the foundations of what my music was. So it was like Aerosmith, Tom Petty, Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Frank Zappa, the band. Nice. There were like 20, right? And so there was like 500 albums, one a day, sometimes twice. I'm fairly underemployed. I have that kind of time. And that was before the kid. So I could just sit and listen and actively listen. And now I'm on my second journey because I finished that one and I liked it so much because one of the problems I had before I started this was I would want to listen to music, but I would always be like, I don't know what to listen to. And having been like, well, I'm just going to listen to these 12 bands in order, what they released, whatever. Mm. So I would say... I found an appreciation for Dylan that I never had before. I would recommend Oh Mercy, which I think is one of the underrated albums
80s, right?
For him. Yeah. Yep. I would also say, that was part of the first one. In the second one, one of my more recent, cause I've only known about the band for a decade, even though they're from a long time ago, is the Tragically Hip out of Canada, specifically Trouble at the Hen House. That album is really good. And then I know he's coming out with a new album, but and I cannot remember what it was a punny name and I can't remember it anymore. But Tim Minchin is a comedic musician, right? And he came out with an album that was serious. And I cannot remember. I just can't think of the name of it, but it's his first piece of serious music. All his other stuff is like comedy albums where he does fun songs. Okay. But this was his first serious one. I think it's Lonely Together or Apart Together.
Okay.
I think it's Apart Together. And that album, that album is beautiful, and he's coming out with as we record this, it's soon, so it's probably out by now when you're listening to this. He's coming out with another serious music album. But there's a live version of Apart Together that I would recommend them both, just because it's really interesting to kind of be like, oh, I really like this song, and then now it's just like now it's just piano. There's nothing else. The guitar, everything else is kind of stripped out. But those are the three I think that I would recommend to you.
Can you repeat the first one again?
That would be Oh Mercy.
Oh Mercy, right.
Yep, that was Bob Dylan's Oh Mercy. Yep.
Right. I really got into the last year. I got into the Desire album, the one that Hurricane is on.
Yep.
I have a ton of Dylan vinyl that I'm going back through. But
okay.
But you raise an interesting point. We're talking about the good old days when we were growing up, and kids nowadays. But the album, the concept of an album from start to finish as a work of art.
Yeah.
That, and I do think of it as a work of art, and I question the future of the album, since every, music nowadays, and it has its advantages, like playlists, and you like this artist, so we're going to knock out like 200 songs just like it from similar, and that's a cool thing. The concept of the album is a complete work of art in itself, rather than just a collection of songs. And, given your task, going through all those classic rock bands chronologically, what I'm hearing in that is that you wanted to take them in as they produced that piece of art in that point of their career.
Well, and to see how they reacted to each other, as an example, like that's, you can kind of, obviously the Beatles were in there too. Like it's just how things go. But one of the things, and I don't know that I'll ever meet Taylor Swift. But I listened to every Taylor Swift album because a friend of mine who's a big Swiftie was like, well, you don't know her. And I was like, that's fair. I don't. So I listened to them, and I think that was kind of the key for me, because I don't know, one of her early albums, one of the first four, let's say, I was listening to it as a whole piece. And it struck me by about track 7 that this felt like a producer's track list, because there was a song about breaking up, and a song about getting together, and a song about a fight, and a song about breaking up. And it just felt like if you rearranged this album, the track list in this album, you could make it, in theory, one relationship arc, even if they're all about different relationships. And I think maybe because I think of the album as a whole, I think of it going like, well, if you start here and end here, it's one entire relationship arc. And yet, because the track list is the way it is, that's not the way it's portrayed. That's not the way you hear it if you listen to it track by track all the way through. And I think, like, I mean, as an artist, if I was ever going to do an album, like, I would want it doesn't have to musically go into the next song, but I think track list is important. Like, what comes next is just as important for a track as it would be in a book and a novel, like what the next chapter is. And you're right. I think we've kind of lost that. And going back, Dylan and the Stones have put out stuff in the last 5 years. I don't know that but it's hard to find independent stuff. So you need people to really help you.
Right. And
so I hope it's out there. I would like to think it is.
I think people are. I just don't think it's the dominant way of consuming, and I even use that word unconsciously, but it's an interesting word, consuming music. It's and it's, I think, it's streaming driven. It's trying to keep your attention. There's a dopamine, trigger piece in there somewhere.
Yeah.
In the algorithms. And like I said, I'm not a hater on new things, but I think with changes, you give up something, and, giving up, and as a kid, I got records because they were really cheap. I'd go to Salvation Army and they were 25 cents or 50 cents. So I had this great collection, and I got it from my parents, and it was cheaper than CDs. I still have a lot of them, but I value them differently now, because I'm like, this is,
you can hold it. Yeah.
Album. And, and somebody thought about the cover art, and then, often there's the liner notes that give you some context or something. And it was just like a multi-sensory experience of the art, and not just the notes of the song, or the lyric, but it was like, this is a bigger piece of art that's like, encapsulating lots of different things. And I think music is still that, but you don't have that. It's different. And, like I say, when you gain something, we're also giving up something as well. And, it's okay, but, all things in moderation and to do it mindfully. But yeah, I think artists are still, I think a lot of people still, records still sell, kids. And I see kids buying records, like legit kids buying records and stuff. So I think there's something to it. I also think there's, gotta be like this, I think, permanent backlash also against automation. And, I think, as attractive as it is to always be on the internet and always be scrolling and always, I think there's a part of all of us are like, F this, I want to be analog. I don't want a digital avatar to be myself,
Did you hear it? His voice got all wonky when saying he wanted to go analog, and no, I didn't do that. But the conversation itself revealed a few outro-worthy dialogues that I feel we covered well enough in the conversation that I'll just reiterate them here. Fulfillment is not the same as wealth. Genuine connection is worth striving for, even if it's just one fleeting conversation, and having a destination does hinder both your sense of wonder and ability to wander. But there is something else from the beginning of this episode. I quote, met, unquote, Adam while editing an episode of The Good Government Show. On that show, I learned about his dream of becoming a baseball player or a rock star, and that's how we started this conversation. And in many ways, it's fitting to end that way because Adam hasn't given up on those dreams, no matter how unlikely. It's improbable, sure, but for a guy who's in public service that wants to leave the world better than he found it, he's still dreaming for himself, and that is as admirable as his work in the public sector. Adam is an example, and this conversation is one too. We made a genuine connection. This is why I do this, and this is why you should strike up a conversation. This is what language is for, to help communicate and connect in a meaningful way, to hear things from other people that may help us regain some sense of wonder. Because not everything requires a destination. In fact, to wonder, a destination is the obstacle you must overcome. Thanks for listening to The Palmer Files, episode 161. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact us in the show notes. There, you will find a link to Season 5, Episode 3 of The Good Government Show featuring Adam Ortiz titled Keeping Our Country Clean, available wherever you're listening to this episode. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Email and comments can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Adam, do you have one final question for me?
So we've covered a lot of ground, and you contacted me through my work, but we barely talked about my work, which is fine. I talked about it all day long. And listening to your other episodes, it's really an eclectic, not just an eclectic number of guests that you have on the show, but the topics are wide ranging.
Yes.
And I know it's not like, it's not just like the Seinfeld, like this is a show about nothing, like I think you have like some kind of method, and maybe it's not something that's conscious that you're achieving through the podcast, 150 plus episodes, if that is true, and if it's not, say so, but what do you think It is like there's an authenticity about it. There's a lack of structure, but it's actually, I think, a really valuable thing in an over-programmed media society.
Yeah, I think what happened was, look, I was a serial podcast guest for a very long time before I started the show. The joke was I didn't need my own show. I had everyone else's. I would just guest. And having done that first, maybe kind of like as a stretching of the legs, I got to see formats and approaches, both from, guests and hosts, that I was like, all right, well, I'm close to figuring out what I want to do. The first 3 were very structured. And that was on purpose. I wanted the first 3 episodes of this show to tell my background. The first show is about, should I even be doing this show? The second show is about my writing, and the blogging that I do. And the third was about the podcasting that led up into the podcast. Mm. And those were fairly on topic. I haven't really done one on topic since episode 3. And I think that that's kind of been because I've found that there is something to talking for an hour, which I like to equate with just having a cup of coffee. Like if we went, that's probably not too much. Like if we met at a cafe and we hung out for an hour, that's probably, depending on the conversation, that's the limit. And a lot of us don't have much more time than that. So I do like it to meander, because I just don't know where we're going to end up. And I guess to go back to like what you talked about with the internet of knowing where we want to end up, I don't. I mean, I spend most of my time worrying if I'm going to be good enough, because it's one of my nervous energy before hitting record is always how I know I should still be doing this show. But I'm also nervous because I never, until I'm in it, until after record and I check my levels, I never know what my first question is going to be. And I never know if it's going to be good enough. And maybe, it's not, but we've made up for it anyway. Maybe it is good, but it went a different direction. I just don't know. I think I like to, I guess, verbally and orally, to catch the talking and listening parts, wander. And, there's also a thing where, and I haven't said this on the show, but there have been, I think 2 of my previous guests are no longer, right? Mm. One was an older gentleman. The other was someone who was afflicted with a lot of illness. And I didn't actually, I didn't really know about them. They weren't, if you and I never speak again, that's kind of like the thing. They were guests. It was wonderful. I emailed them back and forth a little bit, but we never really caught up again. And I started working on doing transcripts of this podcast for my website, and I discovered that they were no more. I didn't need that to know that, like, this could be my only shot with Adam. I don't know what happens next. I've also made some friends that, invited someone on, we hit it off, and then eventually, 2 months later, we're trading cell phones and we're just texting back and forth on occasion as just old friends. But I always think that there's a chance this could be my one and only. So I worry, like, is it good enough? But I also know, my process is one that these will go on a shelf. I'll edit this as soon as I can. I mean, I'm working ahead, but I'll edit this as soon, then I'll put it on a shelf until the week before it releases, when I listen to it, make my notes, and write my intro and outro. Okay. And the one thing I've learned over the 150 plus episodes is that there are no bad episodes. There are episodes where I may have missed the mark. I might think of a question I missed in the long run, or when I'm editing, which is much closer to recording than anything else. But when I listen back for notes and like jogging my memory of the conversation, none of these are ever bad. They might feel that way in the moment, like because you dwell on the one thing you didn't ask or like the one thing that like you never followed up on. But again, if we were to network at a conference, we only have that 15 minutes. Even if we're at the bar afterwards, we only have that out that evening. I'm not going to see you again. Maybe, maybe not. So like, this is my chance. And did I do it well enough? And I like to think that most of the time, after it's sat on a shelf for a little bit and I'm removed from recency bias and I'm not having to be like, oh, did I do it all right? It's usually pretty good. But on a whole, I think maybe to your point, I've finally come to the realization that it's in the not knowing. That's where everything is. I tell the same story on here a few times. It's evolved. That's not a mistake. I've evolved. So the story I'm telling, even if it's the same story, is different. And any story you tell me as a preface to something I may come back with will color how I tell my story as well. So even just in less than 90 minutes, because I do have a time limit, I've never gone over 90 minutes, but even in less than 90 minutes or as short as 45, you and I can have an impact on each other, even if this is the only conversation we've ever had or ever will have.
That's right.
And that's, oh my God, like to be able to share that with people. Doesn't have to be millions. Could be tens. Could be ones. Could be just two people. It's kind of like, all right, that's cool. I also think, I do this for myself as well. Like I need to be engaged. I need to be interested. And at the bare minimum, if that's a requirement, that's always fulfilled. I have such a wonderful, like I'm pretty good at editing and I don't mind editing, but this is the fun part. 100%,
And you came back to the word fulfilled.
Not on purpose, but it was in there. So that's where we ended up.